What's going on, YouTube? Tom here, and today I got some more updates on my Mustang. So, it is in production. I got the Windows sticker as well, and also I have an estimated delivery date. So, March the 11th is the estimated delivery date. Now, of course, that's not set in stone. It could be earlier, it could be later, depending on a variety of factors. One thing is that falls on a Sunday, which that actually makes me think that it might be later or earlier. I'm leaning towards later, but either way, second week of March by the looks of it is when the car will finally get here. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a Mustang once again, sort of the vlog type fashion. And that is, why exactly did I pick a 5.0? Now, there's a variety of Mustang options out there, as most people might know. So, which engine should I get? Now, of course, I guess we'll start with kind of the basic Mustang, because what do the majority of people get when they get a Mustang? They get either a V6 or an EcoBoost. Now, as most people know, the V6 is going away after 2017, or I actually shouldn't even say it is going away, has gone away. But I guess if I'd really wanted one, I could have picked one up while they were still on the lot. If you wanted a 17, it's pretty slim pickings right now. Every time I've been to the lot since pretty much the second week of January, it's been all 18s. So the V6 is a great platform, so to speak. It's the car itself is pretty great. It has a decent amount of power stock. And I know a lot of people will give the V6 a shit, but realistically, 300 horsepower is not a slouch. It's a pretty decent amount of power for the car. And, the insurance is still pretty good, and the price of the car is relatively cheap. And, of course, the S550, the V6, was the base model, so you can get them for next to nothing. So if you can actually still find one on the dealer lot, I guarantee you can get it for an absolute bargain. And, of course, the other option is the EcoBoost, which I'm not as big of a fan of the EcoBoost, just because, to me, a Turbo 4 is not what belongs in a car as big as the Mustang. And, of course, numbers are there. I know people will talk about the numbers, but numbers don't tell the whole story about the driving experience. Turbo lag is just not a fun thing. And then on top of that, it's just, the sound is awful. It's not as great of a platform to build off of. But either one of those cars are not bad cars. As I mentioned, they're reasonable on insurance. They're reasonable platforms to build off of. But here's why I didn't want either one of those, and that is, simply put, they feel like a compromise to me. Now, I like the EcoBoost and I like the V6, but to me, those are cars you buy when you're needing a car that actually is good on gas, is reasonably priced to buy, is decent on insurance. All those things, because you're probably buying those as a daily driver. More than likely, those are daily driven, and therefore you need those things. A V8 simply would be too expensive in those options. So, therefore, you don't necessarily want a V8. You want something with less power, but obviously more practicality. And to me, the thing is, I'm not looking for another daily driver. I've got my Tacoma for that. So then, of course, let's go to the opposite of the spectrum. What about the Shelby? And going off the kind of the newer used example, I honestly could not afford a new Shelby, so it would have to be a used Shelby anyway. Although Shelbys are cars that are much more likely to have been babied in their lives. But that's kind of a more extreme sports car. And Shelbys are great cars. And it's a car I would like to own someday. In fact, I pretty much will own one. So I don't mind buying a used one. And they're still great cars no matter which generation you get. For me, it would have been probably, if I had gone with a Shelby, I looked at some that were as old as 2011 and as new as 2016. And the GT350s are simply too expensive, because the cheapest one I could find, and also which happened to be the most local to me, was $48,000. And simply put, that was just outside my budget. So GT350s, they go for the 50s or so, even used, for a 15 or a 16, and that pretty much eliminated it just because I couldn't afford that. And 2011 or 2012 was what I first looked at for GT 500s, because that was 2011, as most people know about the GT 500. That was the year they switched to the aluminum block 5.4 liter, which added power, added lightness. So it was kind of the best ultimate version of that 5.4 V8. So I looked at 2011s and 2012s, and they're in the mid 30s for decent cars, which isn't bad money. And of course they got the facelift, so I think those look a lot better. And they're good cars. And of course, but like I said, they're used, so you don't necessarily know what you're getting. And of course, to find the right car would have been a hunt. And then I looked at some 13s and 14s, because I thought, okay, let's give a look at those. And they're in the mid 40s for a really low mileage one, and they go then to the actual high mileage ones are of course in the 30s. They're quite expensive, just because I think a lot of people, when they had the power, people thought they would be collectible cars. 662 horsepower is the reason you want to buy one, and I think a lot of people at the time thought that was going to be the ultimate car ever, because they thought that was the most powerful production V8 in the world at the time it came out. As we all know, Dodge later changed that. So that's the problem. You do pay a premium for a 13 or a 14 for that reason. And of course, other reasons why I didn't want one is even though the price of the car is the same, a lot of people kind of forget when they try to tell me to get a Shelby that owning a Shelby is not cheaper. Buying it is the same, but it costs a lot more to own one, because now you're going to pay more in insurance. You're going to pay more in gas because it is a less fuel efficient car. And on top of that, you're going to pay more if you want to mod the car, because Shelby parts are expensive. But another reason I didn't want to get a Shelby was you get a lot of attention in a Shelby. Shelby is the kind of car you don't see every day. And because they do cost a lot, it is kind of a dream car for a lot of people. So when you do see one around, a lot of people break their necks to look at them. A lot of people do know what they are. So while it's a good car, it's just I don't want that attention necessarily. Now, there are cars I do eventually want to have that attention, but right now, I think I'm at a point in my life I still want to stay a little under the radar with it. Don't want to necessarily have everyone break their necks to look at my car. So, that's a thing you got to consider when you do get a Shelby. And going back, I guess, to why I picked a GT, well, it's kind of the ideal balance. It is fairly under the radar, kind of like what I was saying, and why Shelbys are not under the radar. GTs somewhat are. You're not necessarily going to break your neck to look at a GT, because you're going to see 5 more later that day. It's like, well, I'm not necessarily straining to look at one. And then, on top of that, you are getting a decent amount of power, more so than you would on an EcoBoost or a V6. It's a good platform to build off of, because unlike the EcoBoost where you have to basically, to get power, you have to go to a bigger turbo, and you can only go so big before it has enough turbo lag to where you've already lost the race by the time your turbo kicks in. And then a V6, basically the only way to make a V6 faster is to go to forced induction, like a Pro Charger or a turbo or supercharger. GTs, you can do more with it naturally aspirated, or you can go slap on a supercharger or a turbocharger, etc., and you can have a boatload of power. So that for the buildability, that's kind of a funny word to say, buildability. It's got the best buildable aspects of it, because a Shelby, if you want to build it, GT500, the only real way to get more power is once you go bolt-ons and then cams is to strap on a bigger blower. And of course, once again, you can only go so big before you have to build a motor. And of course, that just runs into money. So Shelbys are more expensive to build. They're just as buildable as a GT, but you have to pay a lot more to do it. So the GT was, of course, the most buildable, because I could go with a Roush Charger kit, be under a factory warranty, with 700 horsepower, and for I guess my car is $43,000, so $12,000 for the Roush Charge kit, because that also includes the upgraded half shafts. Now, they haven't come out with that for the 18 yet, but theoretically, that's a 700 horsepower performance package Mustang for $55,000. And you could even honestly go cheaper if you got a basic performance package and not like the one like mine with some options. So that right there, it's the best bargain. And on top of that, specifically, why did I go with an 18 GT? So on top of that, when you do get the car, you know, why did I pick 17 over an 18, or other way around? Why did I pick an 18 over a 17? It was because the 18 is getting a lot of improvements. It is getting, in the manual transmission, it is getting a more traditional set of gear ratios, and then it's getting a twin disc clutch, so it'll be a lot more drivable, it'll be a lot more able to hold its own power, you know, things like that, where previously you had to spend money to upgrade it. And of course you get things like the active exhaust, which to me is amazing. I actually did look at it. You can get it on a 15 to 17. It just costs a lot more to do. It's $900 as a factory option on an 18, or it's $1,600 to do the Roush active exhaust on a 15 to 17, and that's not including the fact that you have to go to a quad tip setup, which you can supposedly can only do on a premium car. I doubt it would be impossible to do on a base car. The fusers are different on the 15 to 17s for a premium and versus a base. That costs more money. So by the time you're done, you've spent a lot of money to do it. Just that option alone, and then if you look at it as, well, I've got to, at some point, got to get a new clutch. I know people said the 17s would be cheaper. It's like, look, to get the same features, I would spend big money. And on top of that, I'm a fan of the base cars. I didn't really want a premium. So, and on a 15 to 17, you couldn't even get Sync 3 on a base at all. Now, of course, you can with the 301A package. So, to me, the 18 just has the best overall package available for the Mustang. For a GT, that is. Now, honestly, if it hadn't had all of that, and honestly the power had been the same, I probably would have just picked up a 17. I'd be in the car now, and I probably would have honestly gotten a premium just because it would have been a good deal at that point. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you all think, all you Mustang people out there. Let me know what you think about my decision to get a GT, and let me know what you all would buy if you have bought a Mustang. Let me know why you bought that trim, and then if you are looking at a Mustang or want to buy a Mustang, let me know what trim you would buy and why. Anyway, if you like this video, go and leave a thumbs up. If you're stopping in for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. Help this channel get to 1,000 subscribers. Anyway, take care. Have a good day.